Welcome everybody to another Sleuth Intuition live YouTube stream. Um, Today is April 2nd. Year is 2022. Hope everybody's having a good day. Um, so far my day's been great. Woke up early, tended to the garden, had breakfast with my family, sat down at the computer and said, you know what, I want to learn a little bit about forensics today. So I started watching some videos, pulling them directly, from FBI web pages, different states. And I was like, hey, this is a good opportunity for me to share this with my channel, the Sleuth Intuition channel. So we're going to look at a little bit of forensic anthropology, pathology, forensic artists, sketch artists, sculptors. We're not going to do too much of the behavioral stuff today. I think that'll be like part 2. But I did find a ton of material on it. It almost needs its own. It's extremely interesting. It gets into the serial killers and, breaking down the morbid side of humanity. So it's really interesting. This stuff today is a little bit more kind of, I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody by saying geeky or nerdy or things like that, but, it's very informational. Let's put it that way. So let's take a look who made it today. Sloopy, hey, I love that song. Hang on, Sloopy, Sloopy, hang on. It's a good one. Purdue, what's up, Purdue? Ronnie, what's up, Ronnie? Lakeside, should be getting her hoodie soon. Congratulations. Muffin, Linda, BN Mama, what's up? Outback, we already got Purdue. Stacy, how are you? And Jari. So we're going to start out kind of slow. Basically, I'm going to show you guys exactly what I went through today, my little path. So, I cut away all the weeds and all the big bushes for you. So let's take a look.
Meet the dermestid beetle. Usually at home in the forests of the Northwest, this little critter is on the U.S. government payroll. Its take-home pay is all you can eat.
I'm sure they're pretty hungry. And this is a nice fresh body for them to work on.
Forensic scientists use these flesh-eating beetles to strip animal carcasses down to the bone. The beetles are just one tool used at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's Forensics Lab in Ashland, Oregon. It's the only lab in the world dedicated to solving crimes against wildlife. Ken Goddard is the director.
Much like any other police crime laboratory, we do 2 basic things. We identify evidence. In a triangular fashion, we attempt to link suspect, victim, and crime scene together with that evidence. The big difference in our case is, 1, our victim is a non-human animal. 2, we generally don't get a whole animal in. We get pieces, parts, products.
The lab takes cases from across the United States and around the world. It's the official crime lab for CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. The CITES Treaty is the international agreement that governs trafficking of rare plants and animals. Here in the lab, a menagerie of the colorful, the unusual, and the hunted is interspersed among the high-tech equipment of forensic science. The facility features a pathology lab where medical examiners determine how an animal died, a ballistics lab where bullets can be linked to poachers' guns, a genomics lab where DNA testing is done, and a morphology lab where biologists identify the evidence. In fact, that's the most common request they get.
Basically, you would not continue investigation unless you were pretty sure you're dealing with endangered or threatened species. If it's wolf parts, sure, you're going to go after that. If it's coyote fur, probably not.
Because the Ashland lab is the only one of its kind, the onus has been on Goddard and his staff of 15 forensic experts to develop new ways to analyze evidence and secure convictions. Deputy Lab Chief Ed Espinoza has been responsible for many of the innovations in forensic technology and techniques. His latest challenge has been figuring out how to identify species of trees. You might not think of trees as typical wildlife. Illegal logging may not attract the same attention as rhino, tiger, or elephant poaching, but trees are a vital part of any ecosystem, and CITES lists nearly 50 threatened and
See, one thing I gathered about these guys here is they basically are there to determine whether or not somebody is breaking the law. So they're using science to determine, okay, is this guy breaking the law? Or is he just hunting animals or, taking trees that are actually legal? So I thought that was extremely interesting. And these guys are very proud of their work. They want everybody to know, hey, we're doing the real work here, just like any other laboratory.
endangered timber species.
Those are the things I picked up
U.S.
on.
federal agents have begun seizing shipments of illegally trafficked wood, rare species like Brazilian rosewood. It garners a hefty price on the black market and is prized in making furniture and musical instruments. But determining which type of rosewood was used is impossible after the limbs, leaves, and DNA-rich sapwood have been removed.
These two woods are visually and morphologically indistinguishable. They have very similar names. One's called Brazilian rosewood, the other one's called Amazonian rosewood. Most of us, in our head, they become synonymous. The Amazon is Brazil, therefore it's the same thing, right? And so it's kind of a trick in terms of the naming. But one is protected, Delbergia negra, or Brazilian rosewood, is protected, and Delbergia spruciana, or Amazonian rosewood, is not. So the challenge for us is the scientific challenge: can we separate these two in order to enforce the CITES treaty?
To do that, Espinoza and his team innovated a way to identify protected species of wood using a technology called a DART mass spectrometer. First, he planes off a small sliver from the evidence sample. Then, he puts the DART to work. The machine ionizes and identifies molecules in the wood, chemical compounds that are unique to a specific species of tree. It then spits out the data.
Each one of these peaks corresponds to a distinct, different molecule that is present in the rosewood. From my experience, I know that this particular peak, which is a compound called caveunine, is specific to Delbergia negra.
Comparing the data to a growing library of chemical signatures, Espinoza can positively identify the wood, and in some cases even determine where the specific tree grew.
Yeah, I think these wood cases are far more important than just the wood. I mean, trees can be regrown. It's pretty easy. It may take a while. You don't get a big redwood replacement in a few years, but they are replaceable. That may not be true for the species that lived in that forest. That may be one of the last survival points. We've got to be really careful about that.
This year, the lab's staff is expanding by about 50%, letting it take on more cases. But Goddard says it will take more than just an increase in manpower.
We've made great advances over this last 25 years, but we've got a long way to go. Law enforcement doesn't resolve issues. The best we can do is hold things at bay, keep them from getting worse until smarter people come along.
Until then, Ken Goddard and his team will keep working sliver by sliver, beetle bite by beetle bite, using innovation and forensic science to bring wildlife traffickers to justice.
Pretty interesting, right? So these will be the guys that would tell loggers whether they're breaking the law or not. So let's keep it moving here.
Well, the overall goal of the project is to find a clandestine burial and use the proper archaeological techniques and excavate that burial. So right now the first step that they're doing is do an overall survey of the area, and actually right now they are going to stand in the line and kind of travel down this fence line, and they have probes, so they're going to probe for a burial and see what they think might delineate a grave. It can be on a slope. It doesn't have to be flat surface that we're working with. You know, it could be on a slope, could be on a slant, could be underneath some leaves over there. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Not there.
So the main thing today is the discovery of the grave and then the beginning of the excavation, which looks at soil changes and then the beginning of the map, putting in the datum point, getting the burial or site of interest situated in space. And that's the main thing, mapping it in with datums and things at that point. So today's kind of the analytical part of getting the grave situated. Towards the end of the afternoon, bone will be discovered, and mainly tomorrow, or day 3, is the actual uncovering of the bone.
Well, the fundamental truth about excavation is it can only be done once. And to excavate is to destroy. And so in the process of recovering whatever it is that's buried there, you destroy the context in which it's buried. And the context, the surrounding soil, may contain extremely valuable information about the individual artifacts and other things that would help in the process of identification or in trying to figure out what happened to that individual.
We're definitely going to be into tomorrow for sure. I'd say it's several more hours of digging because we haven't even uncovered the second leg bone. We do have the rib cage exposed, both arms, and one tibia and fibula, but we don't have the other leg exposed.
Well, Knoxville, we've been here for 10 years now training. It kind of resulted in a need that we identified based on casework that we've came across in the field, and some international cases that we became involved in. In the late 90s, we were over in Kosovo, and we were helping exhume bodies over there, and we saw the need for some training based on what we experienced over there.
Pretty close to this skull on this side.
Now, Bureau personnel are, some of the best students I've ever had. They are the expert at the crime scene, and their goal, and our goal really, is to how do you process this unique crime scene? How does the excavator get this in the hands of the expert? We're not trying to turn these agents into anthropologists or dentists or pathologists. If they would have wanted to be those things, they would have been them. They're crime scene specialists, evidence response team, and my goal is to train them to appreciate this evidence and how do I excavate it and then deliver it to the experts that are going to work on it.
Our burial was actually placed in a bin, and then last year, upon reburial, they took that body from the bin and poured it in this unit, and so the body is curled up. It's a bundle burial, so the bones are all bundled together, and so some of the issues that you have with that are it's not extended, so you pretty much have to excavate in a circular pit.
At least an extra skull, but I'm guessing there's a body there. Well, as we were excavating this grave site, we found the remains of one skeleton. Upon further excavation, it appears that we have a second body that's been sandwiched in next to this first set of remains.
definitely think it takes a certain kind of person to do this. I never thought I would be able to, but as the years have gone by and working in this field, you get kind of accustomed to it. You know you have a job to do, and that's what a lot of times I'm sure it gets a lot of people through it.
It's just like a crime scene. Well, I can't do this or I can't do that. Well, it's not about you. It's about the victim, or it's about training the agents that need to be able to go into that scene. So, you know, you put that first, and you know, you become kind of inconsequential to the mission.
Everyone says to excavate is to destroy, but what they sometimes forget is the other half of the equation, the flip side, because to investigate is to illuminate, and that, after all, is the purpose of the excavation, illumination.
Yeah, I'm going to include that in another video. That guy, man, that guy is interesting. I might do something just on him. But we are going to keep it moving. I don't want to spend too much time on here. A couple of these are a little bit longer.
We need the right person to see this image pretty much at the right time. All we need is that one person to see it. My name is Lisa Bailey. I'm a Digital Information Specialist at the FBI Laboratory, and I work on facial approximations of unidentified remains. When the evidence comes in, it first goes into the anthropologist, because as an artist, I can't do anything until I have the age, sex, stature, and ancestry of the person that I'm going to be depicting.
So this is kind of the moral of the story here. You know, all these professionals are working together. You know, they don't try to do the other one's job. You know, they wait until it's their turn or it's their time to step in. So, for instance, I know nothing about anthropology, pathology, analyzing behavior, but I do know how to sketch and I can sculpt. I'm a great artist. So when I see these people playing an integral role, it's very inspiring to me. So that I kind of want that to be the moral of what we're watching or looking at here, is that these professionals, they're not stepping on each other's toes. They're not having a pissing contest. They're working together. They're allowing the other to do what they're trained to do so that they can take that work and build on it.
I read the anthropologist report and I sit and just examine the skull. I'm just looking at it for any other clues, like maybe one cheek might be a little bit more recessed than the other. I'm just looking and basically seeing what the anthropologist is seeing, and before I start sculpting. You need to be an artist to be a forensic artist. You have to have technical skills, you have to be able to draw and to sculpt, but you have to know when to pull back and not put too much in that is unknown. For with skulls, there are things we know, things that we don't know. So you can't go too far and put in things that are just absolutely not known, because that'll detract from the case. There are some that just will never be identified. I mean, that's one of the things I've had to reconcile with myself in doing this job, is that I can do the best I can. There's only so much I can do. Just they're not all going to be identified, but some of them can. And if somebody's looking, you know, all they need to do is make that call. Just seeing that one image could be the one thing that makes somebody take a second look. That's all we need, is for somebody is to see it and just make the phone call.
Very interesting. This next one, it's a little bit longer. I think it's like 9 minutes, but it ties directly into this, but she's a sketch artist. This is really cool.
I'm a forensic artist.
So let's hang out in the chat a little bit. This next one's really good. Kind of got me a little my eyes kind of watered up a little bit. Really powerful. You've probably already seen it, but it's still good. Yeah, she's tough. She was a victim too. She was like, you know what? Because you messed with me, now I'm going to take down like thousands of people. From a criminal standpoint, like they messed with the wrong person. Statistically speaking. Hey, what's up, Joe? Yeah, man, we need to give her a call. Be like, look, this is what we got. Show her the video, the voice. I don't know, Grunge Truck. I don't even know if he had anything to do with it. There's so many variables. You know, sometimes in a pack of wolves, there's just that one wolf, you know. He's just a little meaner than the rest. And sometimes that wolf will go and hunt alone without help of the pack. So you never know. Oh, I intend to, Purdy. You know, if she responds, that'd be really awesome, but I'm going to send her a couple pictures, some really good videos. Maybe send some images of the family members so she kind of gets an idea of what, you know, our suspects look like. Like, oh, well, if this is his brother, you know, he definitely can't be the young sketch. If this is his family member, this is his mother and his father, he definitely can't be what I see in the motion video, you know, something like that. Who knows? All right, let's take a look. This one's really good, you guys. I really enjoyed this one. Made me kind of take pause, and I really got into some deep thought there for a moment. So I hope it does the same for you guys.
Worked for the San Jose Police Department from 1995 to 2011.
I showed up to a place I'd never been, and there was a guy with a drafting board.
We couldn't see them, they couldn't see us.
First of all, what is your race?
White.
I'm Asian.
Tell me about your hair.
I didn't know what he was doing, but then I could tell after several questions that he was drawing me.
Your jaw?
My mom told me I had a big jaw.
Tell me about your chin.
It kind of protrudes a little bit, especially when I smile.
What would be your most prominent feature?
Kind of have a fat, rounder face.
The older I've gotten, the more freckles I've gotten.
I would say I have a pretty big forehead. If I was to measure my forehead, 1 3/4 inches, maybe 2 inches.
Once I get a sketch, I say thank you very much, and then they leave. I don't see them.
All I had been told before the sketch was to get friendly with this other woman, Chloe.
Today I'm going to ask you some questions about a person you met earlier, and I'm going to ask you some general questions about their face.
She was thin, so you could see her cheekbones. And her chin, it was a nice, thin
Chin.
The women were really critical about moles or scars or things like that, and yet they were describing just a normal, beautiful person.
She had nice eyes. They lit up when she spoke.
She had very full lips, with really nice teeth.
She had a beautiful smile, great personality.
Short. Yeah, cute nose.
She had blue eyes, very nice blue eyes.
So here we are. So this is your self-described image?
So this is where I teared up a little bit. So, full disclosure.
And then somebody else described you and I did this sketch.
I have this whole thing about having dark circles and crow's feet around my eyes, and that was not part of the sketch at all that the stranger did. The stranger's was a little more like gentle.
She looks closed off and fatter. She just looks kind of shut down. Looks sadder, too. The second one is more beautiful.
You think they're catching more of that from you?
Yeah. She looks more open and friendly and happy. I've come a long way in how I see myself, but I think I still have some way to go.
Deep breath.
Chloe's perception was so clearly different. Her picture looked like somebody I thought I would want to talk to and be friends with, like a happy, light, much younger, much brighter person. I have some work to do on myself.
Just a deep breath on that one. Whew. Might be that music. Just had to stop it real quick. That was the end anyway. Man, powerful. I think that was like a Dove promotion or something. But yeah, he was a forensic artist. Great experiment. Powerful message. You know? And I think somebody hit it right on the head. We're our own worst critics. I think that was Lakeside. Yeah, so true. So I have one more. This is in regards to the IAFIS. And it's extremely interesting and very inspiring as well. It got me twice. Yeah, you know, your perception. Yeah, and the one lady, she said, I got some work to do on me. Because that's how I felt. I was like, wow. You know, all our insecurities, they get the better of us sometimes. And then once you allow that to happen, people can use your insecurities that they don't even see themselves, but just knowing that you are insecure, they can use that against you. It's really horrible.
The FBI Latent Hit of the Year is awarded annually to an outstanding latent examiner or officer who solved a major violent crime by using the FBI's IAFIS database. 2011, Joe Kincaid and James Ramsey.
Diane Jackson was on her way to work for the phone company, and when she left her car to walk into work, someone grabbed her and took her into a shed that was in an abandoned gas station.
There he raped her and robbed her, murdered her.
After he murdered her, he stole her Mustang.
HPD was able to recover some of his fingerprints from that vehicle. She was my oldest sister, and she was 5 years older than I, and we were pretty close. When she was killed, we really took it hard, as you can imagine.
Well, I know the effect that Diane's murder had on David. At the time, he was going to become an attorney.
But after this happened, I started looking at law enforcement. My goal was become a Texas Ranger and try and solve my sister's murder. Later on, as my dad was quite elderly.
Now, how badass is that? This guy was going to be an attorney, fell victim to tragedy, lost a loved one, and said, you know what? I'm not going to be an attorney. I'm going to become a Texas Ranger, and I'm going to find the person that killed my family member.
Every time I'd go see him, he'd ask me to please solve Diane's murder before he died.
In 1975, I joined the Houston Police Department, and I would see David more and more, and we became good friends.
I know they've been friends for over 20 years, and how Jim Ramsey really looked up to David.
In 2003, David approached me, and he told me that his sister had been murdered in Houston back in 1969.
He was shocked. He was shocked that we had known each other for over 30 years and that he didn't know that my sister had been murdered and then it was an unsolved case. I dare say there wasn't anybody I worked with who knew about it.
But I was honored that out of all the people that David knows, and David knows everybody in Texas law enforcement, that he had asked me to look into it.
He said, absolutely. You let me know what I can do and I'll do it.
I got the case file, very extensive, and to my dismay, all the other evidence that had been collected that day had been thrown out at a later time. So then I began to look for the crime scene photos, and I learned that they were missing.
The pictures had somehow gotten out of the evidence room and been sold to this detective magazine. Those are the only pictures that now existed.
Did you hear that? Doesn't that sound familiar? It sounds a lot like what we're going through right now. So let me play that part again. Oh, I may have went too far. Oh, crap. I think I lost it. Oh, there it is.
Thrown out at a later time. So then I began to look for the crime scene photos, and I learned that they were missing.
The pictures had somehow gotten out of the evidence room and been sold to this detective magazine. Those are the only pictures that now existed.
And then the one piece of good evidence that we really needed, the prints that were on the outside of the car, they had been lost.
So they assigned 4 or 5 people to go through all the unsolved cases.
And we're talking about thousands and thousands of just manila folders with print cards inside.
And they found it in a 1986 case. They just put it back in the wrong file. And now we have a chance. At least we have a chance to maybe identify, Diane's murderer.
When we first got the print in, I entered the print through APHIS and I didn't make an identification. So our procedure was if we didn't hit it in our system, then we had the IAPHIS from the FBI available to us.
When that first candidate came up, it was just like, oh my gosh.
This looks like it's probably going to be a hit.
We got the fingerprint card. Jill compared it, and I looked at it also. We decided it was a hit, and I mean, we were just so excited. I mean, we just couldn't believe it.
Okay, where do we go from here? That was the first glimmer of hope in the whole case. Who is it? Now we have a track, we have a trail to run down, we have a name, and we immediately started researching James Ray Davis. Well, for obvious reasons, David could not be the one to go and confront Davis.
I had to back out of the investigation and just have hands off and let Jim do it.
And that's one of the weightiest jobs I've had. A lot of trepidation. I was pretty nervous.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure. But I will say that there's nobody I'd rather have doing it than Jim. First of all, we located Davis in Texarkana.
We knocked on the door, and we heard a voice say, "Come in." I said, "Mr. Davis, we're with the Houston Police Department." Well, his demeanor changed totally then, because he knew.
He was able to talk him into going down to Texarkana Police Department and have an interview down there.
It was Diane's car, wasn't it? I pulled a picture of Diane's car. It's a '68 red Mustang out, and I laid it on the table in front of him. And he adamantly said, "I've never seen that vehicle, never in my life." I said, "You've never seen a '68 Mustang?" "Mr. Davis, I want to show you a picture." Then I pulled a picture of Diane that David had given me, and I handed him, and he wouldn't take it, and he wouldn't look at it. I knew he was, I was absolutely convinced he was our killer. We really needed a confession in order to get charges filed. He began to open up, and I covertly turned on a recorder.
Mr. Davis, you're doing a good job of telling the truth. I want you to be totally truthful.
Pretending to do it. She went to screaming and hollering, and I had a Dutch knife, and I just stabbed her one or two times, and I jumped up and ran.
You took money from her, you stabbed her, and then you took her car.
Right.
And I got him to admit to the murder and to taking her car, but he would not admit to the sexual assault. Rangers. But I was able to call David Maxwell and tell him that I think my words were, "We hit it out of the park." Gosh, I'll never forget it. We were both crying.
There's no way to describe how I felt and what it meant to me to know that we're going to bring him to justice.
And it wasn't long afterwards that David's dad did pass away. He was in his 90s, but when he died, he knew that his daughter's murder had faced justice.
Damn.
He said, "You know, David, I've worked lots of homicides," but he said, "This is the most important case I've ever worked in my career," which that meant a lot to me.
Because at one point we had nothing to go on.
But the FBI enabled us to close a case that we wouldn't have closed with just our database.
And so if we hadn't had IAPHIS, we would have
Teamwork.
never hit this.
One day, the lab director was standing in the hall with a real tall man with a cowboy hat on. He goes,
A badass.
"Are you Jill?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "I'm David." And he just said, "Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Yeah."
Bam.
Tap into the power of IAPHIS. To learn more.
Well, that's going to do it, guys. I want to thank everybody. Sorry I didn't give much notice. I apologize. But I just wanted to share my little journey, trying to learn a few things. I plan to follow up maybe even later tonight when I get some more time. And we'll look at some popular behavior analysts and look at that field and how it's helped, and how these other forensic artists, these pathologists, and these other guys can kind of work together and we'll look at that side of things because it is a little different. From what I did read, it's kind of like where they fall short with the forensic side. That's when the behavioral stuff comes into play and they start to fill in some of the holes. So we'll definitely check that out as well. So I might hang out in the chat here for about maybe another 5 minutes, and then I got to head out. But I think it was a really good live, so I appreciate everybody that showed up. I'm going to go through, I'll probably rewatch it again later. There's a lot of good information I'm sure I missed. So that sounds yummy. Margarita. I like strawberry margaritas. Not with ice, but kind of slushed. Oh, I wish. Not even close. I mean, I can speak to the artistic side of it all, but I mean, these guys are real professionals. It takes a long time and a lot of hard work to gain that kind of moment, when things are just so important and you're working with other professionals and it's just so important to everybody and they have victory. Like, you don't just earn that by being some slouch, You got to really be doing something meaningful. And I think we all, like a lot of the YouTubers and the sleuths online, we all just want that glory. But these guys really put in the effort. So for me, it's just discussion, I just like talking about it. And if we can help, that'd be really awesome. I would like a part of that glory. I didn't even know he had his foot amputated. I don't even know if he's a diabetic. I've just heard that. I don't know. Thanks for joining us, Sky. Appreciate it. Thanks for participating in the chat as well. Thanks, Diane. Always good to have you hanging out and participating as well. What's up, Joel? Yeah, I'm just an usher. I'm like, okay, everybody, gather around. Here's some stuff. Let's talk about it. Let today be the day. What's up, Journey? Everything's all good over here. I hope you're doing well. That's interesting. All right, guys, on that note, I'm going to head out.